Welcome back to the crypto channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and we are just about to see a brand new weekly candle close. And this candle close will be extremely important for the Bitcoin price. So in just a moment, I'll be talking about that. And later in the video, I'll be covering a new signal that Ethereum is flashing right now for Ethereum versus Bitcoin, which is extremely important to pay attention to as well. So more on that later in the video. Definitely stick around. First of all, taking a look at the weekly Bitcoin chart, and this moving average is the 200-week simple moving average. And what we could see right now is the Bitcoin price basically retest this moving average from underneath it. And there's only ever been just a few other times throughout Bitcoin's entire price history where the Bitcoin price has dropped below the 200-week moving average. And those times were the March 2020 crash, and also at the end of the 2014 to 2015 bear market, and later in 2015 as well, just before we began the next major bull market. So we're talking about a very rare time in the market right now where the Bitcoin price has been sitting below the 200-week moving average, which once again doesn't happen very often and normally happens close to significant bottoms in the market. And on top of that, if you're looking at the Bitcoin RSI on the weekly time frame, you could see that recently over the past month or so, we entered into oversold territories for the first time since the bottom of the 2018 bear market. And the only other time where the weekly Bitcoin RSI has entered into oversold territories before 2018, that was back at the end of the 2014 bear market, entering into early 2015. So once again, this is yet another extremely rare signal that we don't see very often. We've only seen it 2 other times and now a 3rd time in Bitcoin's entire price history. And just zooming in on this weekly Bitcoin chart to take a closer look at what the 200-week moving average is doing, right now it's currently coming into play at around 22.7k approximately. And so obviously it would be great to see a weekly candle close back above 22.7k, indicating a break back above the 200-week moving average. But at the time of recording this video, there's still roughly around 1 hour to go until we see the weekly candle close. And by the time you're watching this, we might have already seen the weekly candle close. And obviously, there's never any guarantees when it comes to investing, but we can look at what's happened in the past to try and narrow down the possibilities of what can happen in the future. And simply based on all of these previous significant Bitcoin bear markets, bull markets, all of these cycles throughout Bitcoin's history, we can see that it makes the most sense to accumulate Bitcoin when the Bitcoin price is close to this 200-week moving average, and especially when the weekly Bitcoin RSI is oversold. So due to all of this information, right now my personal long-term Bitcoin investing strategy has not actually changed, which means regardless of short-term bullish and bearish trends on smaller timeframes like the 4-hour chart, at the moment I'm still heavily dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin and holding that Bitcoin for many years to come. But it is important to mention that that is just one part of my overall strategy. That is just my longer term investing strategy. And I do actually have short term strategies that are more to do with trading those short term trends on those smaller timeframes, like the 4-hour chart, for example, which basically look like small volatility on the weekly chart. So once again, I do have shorter term strategies where I might be longing or shorting Bitcoin, depending on if I'm bullish or bearish in the short term. But when it comes to the much longer term relative to the weekly chart, as in many years to come, at the moment, I'm still accumulating a lot of Bitcoin on the spot market and holding that for the long term. But it is also important to mention that that is not personal financial advice for you, because obviously I don't know your personal financial situation. So just because that strategy might work well for me, it might not work well for you depending on your situation. So it's important to do your own research as well. But anyway, heading into the daily Bitcoin chart, and what we could see right here is a perfect retest of this previous line of resistance flipping into new support, and that is coming into play at around $22,000 per Bitcoin. Obviously, this is nothing new for the subscribers out there. I've been talking about that 22k level as an important level for Bitcoin for quite some time. And what I've also been mentioning in recent videos here on the channel is just how important it is for Bitcoin to remain above 22k, because if Bitcoin actually breaks below 22,000, then that means we could be in a similar situation, technically speaking, to what we saw at the end of the first quarter of this year, so entering into April. Because obviously, as you can see here on the chart, we saw an initial breakout to the upside above significant horizontal resistance, and then we came down for a retest, and we actually ended up breaking back below that previous resistance, which was support for a short while. And the break back below that support level was a very bearish signal in the shorter term for Bitcoin, and when we broke this other level of support, that was an even larger bearish signal for the Bitcoin price. So basically, for as long as the Bitcoin price is still holding above that 22k level of support, then we're actually looking really good here on the daily time frame, at least in the somewhat shorter term relative to the daily time frame, because because obviously we haven't technically broken this larger downtrend here on the daily Bitcoin chart, because technically speaking, we're still in a lower high, lower low price structure. So until the Bitcoin price starts breaking back above levels like $32,000 to $33,000 per Bitcoin, then technically speaking, the larger trend here on the daily time frame is still a bearish trend. But if you're looking at the daily Bitcoin RSI, technically speaking, this is still in an uptrend, which is a shorter term bullish sign for the Bitcoin price relative to the daily time frame. So once again, we are currently looking more bullish than bearish in this somewhat shorter term trend on the daily time frame. And these sort of shorter term trends on the daily time frame that I'm referring to usually last around a couple months, give or take. And then the larger trends on this chart usually last at least around half a year or more. But if you're zooming into the shorter term, taking a look at the 4-hour Bitcoin chart, right now, as of recording this video, the Bitcoin price is retesting this 5-day simple moving average, which is currently coming into play at just underneath 23,000. And technically speaking, this should be acting as a bit of short-term resistance for Bitcoin. And while the Bitcoin price is below this moving average, in the shorter term, this technically means we're more bearish than bullish. But the moment the Bitcoin price starts breaking back above this 5-day moving average, recently this has been a signal showing us that we're flipping more bullish if the price is above the moving average. And we can combine this moving average with what's happening in the price oscillator, specifically the RSI and the MACD on the 4-hour chart. And right now in the 4-hour Bitcoin RSI, technically speaking, we're in a lower high, lower low structure, which is technically more bearish than bullish. But with that being said, in the immediate short term, we're starting to flatten out a little bit around the 50 level, which actually shows a lack of momentum in either direction. So essentially in the immediate short term, we're actually looking more neutral rather than overly bullish or overly bearish on the 4-hour Bitcoin chart. But that is just going off the 4-hour Bitcoin RSI. And now if you're looking at the 4-hour Bitcoin MACD, we're actually seeing something similar that is still trending slightly in the bearish direction. But the histogram, for example, is showing a lack in bearish momentum at the moment, even though it hasn't actually flipped bullish just yet. So once again, we have reduced volatility, reduced momentum in the shorter term for Bitcoin, which usually results in choppy sideways price action. But overall, if you're trying to compare bullish versus bearish on the 4-hour chart, technically speaking, as of right now, we are slightly more bearish than bullish when it comes to these indicators. But I want to make it clear that when I'm saying that, this is of course all talking about the shorter term price trends just on the 4-hour chart. I'm not talking about Bitcoin's long-term future, years to come, for example. And now getting into the Ethereum part of this video, this right here is the daily Ethereum chart. And obviously we still have that strong resistance around 1,700. So obviously that has not changed over the past week or so. So if you're new to the channel and you want to know exactly why we have strong resistance at around 1,700, then check out my last few videos that I've posted over the past few days. And if you're looking at the daily Ethereum RSI, even though it is currently in an uptrend, technically speaking, which is more bullish than bearish, you can clearly see that the daily Ethereum RSI is getting very close to overbought territories, which means the room to the upside in the somewhat shorter term on the daily chart is quite limited. Because, for example, the last time the daily Ethereum RSI entered into overbought territories, that was at the end of March, entering into early April, and you can see that that turned out to be a local top for Ethereum. And the time before that was at the Ethereum all-time high. Ethereum finally topped out when the RSI entered into overbought territories. Now, once again, the daily Ethereum RSI is not currently in overbought territories, it's just very close to overbought territories. And historically speaking, anytime the daily RSI enters into overbought territory, so above a value of 70, that either means the short-term bullish trend is over and we're due for another leg to the downside, or it can mean that we're due for just a pause in the trend, so essentially a shorter-term cool-off and then resuming the uptrend later on. But either way, it's not exactly a bullish signal in the immediate short term if the RSI enters into overbought territories. And considering how close the RSI is on the daily chart to entering into overbought territories, that once again gives us limited room to the upside before seeing another potential short-term cool-off, which is one of the reasons why we're currently seeing a bit of a cool-off over the past 1 week, as I've been talking about. And on top of that, if you zoom into just the 12-hour Ethereum chart, we can see that we actually have an active bearish divergence right now, where we formed slightly higher highs in the Ethereum price action if you're looking at the candle closes. But in the 12-hour Ethereum RSI, we actually formed lower highs. So once again, that's a bearish divergence, meaning that the bulls are losing some of that bullish momentum, meaning that we're due to see a bit of a short-term cool-off, whether that's sideways price action or a bit more of a pullback. Either way, just something to reset the RSI back down towards neutral levels. And on top of seeing an active bearish divergence on the 12-hour Ethereum chart just underneath significant resistance, we are also seeing a loss in bullish momentum when it comes comes to the 12-hour Ethereum MACD. As you can see, the histogram within the MACD indicator on the 12-hour time frame is currently declining, which means the MACD is technically getting closer towards a potential bearish cross. So when it comes to the shorter term price action for Ethereum, like I've been saying for around a week now, we do have elevated risk at these price levels after we've already seen a significant pump, and while we're below resistance, below significant resistance, seeing some shorter term bearish indications. Basically, I would not be surprised if the price of Ethereum continues to play out this choppy sideways price action to cool off the RSI back towards neutral levels, or potentially even has a pullback. And honestly, I would actually be surprised if Ethereum has an immediate breakout to the upside without seeing a bit more of a cool off in the RSI and other indicators like that. And now in that potential bearish scenario where we could actually see a pullback for the price of Ethereum, one very important support level that I'll be keeping an eye on is around $1,300, because obviously, as you can see here, that was previous significant resistance for the price of Ethereum, more specifically coming in at around $1,270 to $1,280. But between the current price and that lower price, we do have this Fibonacci level, the 1618 Fibonacci extension, coming into play at around $1,470 to $1,480, which is acting as shorter term support for Ethereum, which once again I've been talking about for a while now on the channel. And by the way, this is the 4-hour Ethereum chart, which also has an active bearish divergence in play. But if you're looking at the 4-hour Ethereum MACD, right now this is actually showing a lack in momentum in either direction. Currently, it's not exactly overly bullish or overly bearish. We're simply seeing the histogram within the MACD indicator hug that 0 level, rather than trend overly bullish or overly bearish, indicating a lack in momentum in the immediate short term. So once again, one of the most likely scenarios in the immediate short term for Ethereum, potentially in the coming hours and days, could be a little bit more choppy sideways price action. But keep an eye on this level of support that I just mentioned, because if we break that level, that is when we could see a continued pullback, perhaps down towards around 1300, anything below that level right there. And now giving you a quick update on the Ethereum versus Bitcoin chart here on the daily time frame. And as you can see here, Ethereum versus Bitcoin has actually had a massive move to the upside over the past couple weeks. And in case you're new to the channel and you have no idea what this chart means, it's essentially Ethereum priced in Bitcoin instead of Ethereum priced in US dollars. So basically, this chart right here tells us if Ethereum is overperforming or underperforming against Bitcoin. Obviously, if Ethereum is going up against Bitcoin, Ethereum is outperforming Bitcoin. But on the other hand, if this chart is going down, that means Ethereum is underperforming against Bitcoin. But as you can see here on the daily Ethereum versus Bitcoin chart, within the last 1 week or so, the RSI entered into overbought territories. And if you're looking at all of these other times in the market where the daily RSI for Ethereum versus Bitcoin has entered into overbought territories, whether or not Ethereum was in a larger uptrend or larger downtrend versus Bitcoin, this daily RSI entering into overbought territories did indeed turn out to be a bearish indication for Ethereum versus Bitcoin, regardless of if we were in a larger uptrend or a larger downtrend. So simply going off all of these other times over the past 1 year where the daily RSI for Ethereum versus Bitcoin was in overbought territories, one of the most likely scenarios moving forward, perhaps over the next couple months, could be a bit of a pullback for Ethereum versus Bitcoin, which essentially means Ethereum is due to underperform against Bitcoin based on this signal alone. But if we also take a look at our Fibonacci retracement tool from this high up here down to the lowest point so far, what we can see at the moment is Ethereum versus Bitcoin running into the most important Fibonacci level, the golden pocket. And this golden pocket, which is technically a small price range, is currently coming into play in between 0.07 to 0.072 Bitcoin per Ethereum. And this is acting as significant resistance for Ethereum versus Bitcoin, while the RSI is extremely close to overbought territories and recently did enter into overbought territories on the daily time frame. It would simply be logical to assume, based on all of this information, that Ethereum versus Bitcoin is due to see a bit of a pullback, which once again means that Ethereum potentially in the coming weeks, maybe the coming months, could be underperforming against Bitcoin. So that's just something else to think about moving forward. And if you want to maximize your profits in crypto, no matter what prices are doing, make sure to check out one of these uploads popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how to make money if crypto is going either up or down, and the video in the bottom left shows you how to make money if we're seeing a choppy sideways price range. But anyway, that's everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.